To mess with what's on the page, we need to use the DOM, the Document Object Model. That is our window into the contents of our document. We access it using the word document. This document has lots of properties and lots of methods. We're going to use one called document.querySelector. This lets us grab things from the page. We pass it a string. Let's pass it the string h1. Is that big enough back there? Hey, look, h1, a factory of people. Hover your mouse over that. Ooh, look at that. It actually highlights it on the page. So this is actually a reference to what's on the page. It's not just a string, h1, a factory of people. Neato. What if we just want the text that's inside there? Well, let's save that h1 to a variable so we can mess with it more easily. Now I say variable, and you're going to watch me type the word const, and you're going to think I've lost my mind. Perhaps I have, but that's not why I'm doing this particular thing. So let's say const heading equals document.querySelector h1. Oh crap, it says undefined. Don't worry. Variable assignments always return undefined. It doesn't mean our variable is undefined. If we actually type heading here, it's fine. It's still the h1. So const and let are two new keywords in ES6 or ES 2015. Prior to that, you created variables with var. But the way variable scope works in JavaScript is a little funky. As of ES6, with the keywords let and const, scope behaves a little more the way we're used to it working in other languages. So as a general rule, just never use var again. Always use let or const. And const still creates variables, not constants. It's just that they can't be reassigned. So I could not now say heading equals something completely different. But I could call methods on it that transform it, and I could set new properties on it. So it's not truly constant, but it can't be reassigned. So as a general rule, use const unless you know you need to reassign it later, and then use let, and never use var anymore. Because the scope is just a little too weird. All right, so now we've got this thing, and we said we wanted to get the text out of it. So heading, when I type that, you'll see it says HTML heading element. That's the type of thing it is. Dot text content. And lo and behold, we get the string, a factory of people. Think we can set it that way as well? Let's see. Heading.text content equals, and let's just set it to something else like PeopleFactory. Do you believe? I believe. Woo, changed. We changed the page right from JavaScript. It's magic. Pretty nice, pretty nice. So you'll notice there were no parentheses here. Text content isn't a method. It's just a property. It's just a value that we accessed, and we can also change it just like that. Piece of cake. We're pros now. Boot camp's over. We changed something on the page with JavaScript. But if you want to stay, there's a little more I think we can cover in the 3 weeks. So let's make things a little more interesting on the page here. Some of the stuff is not going to actually stick around, so you don't have to type along with this if you don't want to. I'm just going to illustrate some things. Let's add a paragraph. And in that paragraph, let's say this is some text. Let's add another paragraph. So is this. Let's add another paragraph. And let's give this one a class. An attribute class equal special. This is special, y'all. Let's add another paragraph. This isn't frowny face. Class equals special. But this is. So what's this class attribute all about? It's really there for CSS. It's a way to target specific elements. But we can also use it to target elements with JavaScript. The thing we were using to grab the H1 off the page is query selector. Keyword selector. So this uses the same syntax as CSS selectors to target elements. So we're going to use that to target some of these paragraphs and not others momentarily. So save that and don't forget to refresh your page or those things will not be in the DOM. All right, now we see those. Now let's use query selector. If I just say document.querySelector, pass it the string P for paragraph, it just got me this one. Query selector only returns the first match. Its cousin, query selector all, returns all matching elements. All elements that match the selector, in this case, P. Aha, now we have all of these inside an array-looking thing. Not technically an array, but it's an array-like thing. If we drill down in there, we can have a closer look at these things. We see all kinds of crazy stuff in there. Notice it abbreviates this to p.special. So P is an element selector, the simplest type of CSS selector we have. It just says match everything that is an element of this type. To target a class, we use the dot. So we could just say dot special, document dot query selector all, the string dot special, and it finds us just these two. But if I also had, say, a div with a class of special, not a paragraph. Don't forget to refresh the page. Query selector all dot special would also find the div. If we wanted to make sure that it's only paragraphs with a class of special, we could combine the class selector with the element selector, say p.special, and it will only find those two. So finding elements by the element and by the class name. Yeah?
So the div on the final document looks just like a paragraph, and how do you know it's not one just by looking at it?
Just by looking at it, you can't tell. Doesn't matter. They're styled the same by default, generally. But it's helpful to use kind of semantic markup to structure our document. Makes it easier to target that way, easier to read, easier to parse. Divs are meaningless, though. The generic block level elements. We'll talk more about that. You can also give elements an ID. So let's say we give this second paragraph an ID attribute of second. Why not? And who knows how we target that with CSS? Anybody know? How you match an ID? No, good guess. But yeah, it's hash. So dot is specifically classes. Hash is ID. So say query selector all, hash second. Query selector all doesn't make a whole lot of sense because there can only be one element on the page with a given ID. Now the browser will happily render it if you violate that rule, but don't violate that rule. And then we will get back just that paragraph. So ID hash class dot. Once again, you could specify the element as well if you wanted to. All right, nothing too tough there. Now we don't actually want these paragraphs or this div in our final document, so I'm going to get rid of it. And let's start adding a little content here.